Madam Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment of my good friend from Washington, Mr. Dix. I respect where my friend is trying to go, but not only does this amendment not get us there, it's downright dangerous. Downright dangerous. Let me explain why. Since the Clinton administration, and in response to lawsuits and court orders that were crippling the agency's budget, since the Clinton administration, there has been a statutory cap on how much the agency is permitted to spend on ESA listings. It's been a statutory cap in place since the Clinton administration. A cap on critical habitat spending was added in 2002. The Obama administration requested new caps for petitions and foreign species listed in 2012. In short, support for ESA funding caps has had bipartisan support in Congress and in the White House, and was in place when the gentleman from Washington wrote the Interior Bill and when the gentleman from Virginia wrote the Interior Bill. Those spending caps were in place. This amendment proposes to do away with funding caps altogether and gives the green light to those that have made a living suing Fish and Wildlife Service. As a result, the litigants will act, the courts will act, and the Fish and Wildlife Service's entire operating budget will be at risk of being raided in order to fund court-ordered mandates to list species and designate critical habitat. The service will have no choice but to raid other funds from its resource management accounts, which is already $146 million, or 12% decreased in this budget. Having said that, the heart of the issue isn't about funding. It's about the fact that the Endangered Species Act is broken and is badly in need of review, revision, and reauthorization by the Natural Resources Committee. As I have said before, there's been about 2,000 species listed, 21 recovered. 2,000 listed, 21 recovered. And unfortunately, the Endangered Species Act has become not so much about saving species as it has been about controlling land and water. I'll give you an example. We all talk about the fuzzy and warm animals that we all like and all want to save. Nobody talks about the slick-spotted peppergrass, endangered. Nobody really cares about the slick-spotted peppergrass except that it's listed, and you know what it does? It prevents cattle grazing on public lands and is used to prevent cattle grazing on public lands and move cattle producers off of public lands. That's the only reason that the slick-spotted peppergrass is really listed. That's unfortunate. When you start using what was an act that everyone in bipartisan, almost unanimous agreement in the House and Senate was a good act. The intent of the Endangered Species Act is right, and we need to do it. We need to protect species that are endangered. Unfortunately, that's not what it's being used for today, and you can't get people to the table, the stakeholders, to do a reauthorization bill because there are groups that like it the way it is. They want to control land and water by using the Endangered Species Act. How do you get the message out to them that we need to do a reauthorization? The only way I can think of is you say, you know what, this has been unauthorized for 20 years. Now you talk about policy riders in this bill that you don't like. This is a policy rider that you're attempting to add. It's an unauthorized program. Just because we have continued to fund it for 20 years, that's not the answer. That's the problem. And we need stakeholders to come to the table, to sit down with the Natural Resources Committee and write a reauthorization. That's what this is all about. It is a shot across the bow. There are 58, I believe it is, 56 or 58 programs in this bill that the authorization has expired. Somehow we need to send a message that we have a process around here. It's authorization, then appropriation. Not authorization, expired appropriation, and appropriation, and appropriation, and appropriation. It's the only way those things keep going on. We are trying to send a message. You will find I am supportive of reauthorization of the Endangered Species Act, and I am supportive of the Endangered Species Act as it was originally intended. But I would urge my colleagues to vote against this dangerous amendment, which would undermine the Fish and Wildlife Service's budget, because it would lift the caps that have been in place since the Clinton administration, and Fish and Wildlife Service would have no other alternative but to raid their accounts in order to fund court orders, suits, and other things that would come along. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment.